Hey everybody, it's Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today we're going to be painting an Aurora Borealis in front of a campfire in acrylic on canvas step by step. I'm going to be breaking this down into its minute details. To help me do that is my husband, John.
Hello.
He's going to be
Hello.
making sure that, I'm sorry,
No, no, I'm just.
I actually do usually interrupt him, but not on purpose. I'm a person who really needs a facial cue. A lot of fun on Skype and audio. So I'm going to be breaking this down step by step. I'm going to explain every technique, every tool, every medium, every color, everything that I'm doing in detail. I'm going to be narrating the whole thing all the way through so that if you're painting along with me at home, you have a really good class to follow along with that really shows you what you need to do. That's like my whole jam is to really break that down. Now, if you do not like drawing, I'm going to break this down, and I actually think this is sort of a no drawing painting lesson. But if you feel nervous about it, I did make a traceable for it, and it is in the description down below. And I will tell you when you could use it if you wanted to use it in the painting. But honestly, this is more of a technique. Of the way the techniques come together to create the objects than it is necessarily drawing or rendering the objects in. So it's low pressure on the drawing. And we're going to go into like all the little things in detail so that they feel very familiar and good. Let's get into the materials.
All right.
Let's go over those. Got to explain those to you. Now, on my canvas, you might see some faint words written. I have an 11 by 14 canvas here, and has the wish or intention that anyone watching this today, that your troubles blow away, that joy rushes in, and that you are in good health. So those are my wishes and intentions for you today. We're bringing those back. I've got Dioxazine Purple, Quinacridone Magenta, Mars Black, Cad Yellow Medium, Cad Red Medium, Phthalo Blue, Phthalo Green, Titanium White. This here is satin glazing liquid. It really does help glazing, and it does help blending, and it slows down the drying time of your paint. So on complex blending, like we're going to be doing in the Aurora Borealis, that can be very useful. You don't have to have it. You can work a little bit faster and just work the paint while it's all still wet. But this is something I highly recommend for making your painting experience just more enjoyable. The other thing I have is fluid acrylic and titanium whites. This is exactly like the heavy bodied, except that the body of the paint is more high flow, and so I can splatter it easier because we're going to do some splatter stars. Now, I actually have a video on different ways to do stars, so if this is not your favorite, there's alternate ways to do that, and it even covers like thinning paint and the trouble that you might encounter there. So if you're like, oh, I've never ever splattered before, one thing I will say is don't do it, next to your $1,500 throw, like if you have one of those. I'm not saying you do, but they exist out there. I just wouldn't do it over your marble counters or in a place where you wouldn't want any paint splatters to go, or at least put out some stuff. I'll talk about that a little more when we get into it.
I'm
Okay.
adjusting you a little bit. You were a little too small. There was too many you.
I was too many?
You was too many.
I was too small, too many. Now,
I've middied you.
on my Facebook page, the Art Sherpa, and in the Facebook group, the Art Sherpa Official, I have dropped the reference photo in there if you guys want to grab that. I can't really distribute it, but, it's there for promotion, and if you happen to have it for reference, that's completely cool.
If, because we do use that image for promotion, if you were signed up to the SMS, I had texted that out as a promotion, so
as a promotion.
You might have that reference image there.
Yes, to use. Yes,
and
for you.
Our mods will drop
a link to that.
So if you want to sign up for the SMS, sorry, I don't have my graphic.
We're not always able to drop the references in there because it uses up a lot more text. But for this one, we wanted to, so you guys had it in there. So those are the places to grab that if you're looking for that. That I'm not officially distributing in any way. I'm just promoting.
Right. Well, you can't use it. We can't give you guys like a license except to use it as a reference.
As a reference.
That's right.
That's all I'm saying is a reference is a teaching material. Okay, so there we go.
Overly disqualified.
Over explanation done. The first step that I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the entire canvas black. I'm going to mist it with a little bit of water to help my little chalk words disappear.
What are your wishes there?
We went over those already.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm sorry.
There was troubles blow away, joy rushes in, good health.
Yeah.
I
was reading the text.
It's okay. And I'm going to go ahead and just put out some black paint on my canvas. I'm going to do it in this silly willy way. You can paint directly from your palette onto the canvas with a brush. You don't need to do this. This isn't a technique. This is I like this actually for the short videos when we release it, when it has the little squiggles to start, because I feel like it gives somebody who's coming by who doesn't know who I am maybe an extra reason to stop and check it out.
You got the squiggles.
I got the squiggles, and maybe that gives them the wiggles and they want to hang out with me a little bit. All right, that was strange. So I have a number 30 bright, and I'm going to brush this out. I'm kind of having a good day, guys. I ran into something I don't normally actually get, which is somebody made a review video of me draw tangles with Dawn did, and I don't get a lot of those.
That was exciting.
And it was very exciting. I watched the whole thing. I also shared that link if you want to see that. They were reviewing our garage sale box.
I was very nervous.
Yeah, I was, because it's not a sponsored review.
Right. We didn't know about it either. We were just like, wake up. And it's like, whoa, there's a review.
I only found it because of the mention feature on my channel. It'll tell me sometimes if people mention me, but usually people mentioning me are not really mentioning me. They're just trying to tag into me to build for my audience. And so it doesn't have anything to do with me, but this mention was for me. And I was so excited. I'm just painting this all out black.
Now you had a good takeaway from that too. About like, don't take apart your brush.
Oh, yes, this is very important. If you have bought the garage sale box, in the brush roll, there's a brush that looks like a quill. It's kind of got a metal band wrapped around it and twisted over a piece of plastic. That's actually the ferrule.
It's the brush that looks like a magic wand.
Yeah.
Don't take it apart. It's supposed to be that way.
Take the brush apart. It's supposed to be like that. Leave the brush alone. We're going to say that a bunch. John will go over that again when we talk about the box in the break. But that's just, if you got the box, don't take the pen apart.
Yeah. But that was fun.
The brush.
Yeah,
it was super fun. And I had to completely agree with their take. And so if you want to see somebody's like opinion, that's not my, that was just their honest opinion. That's
somebody else's
opinion. You can go see that. And I thought it was very well done, and give them some views because they took a real risk to do an unboxing on their channel. So I appreciated that very, very much. I'm just really working this into the canvas so that I have a nice matte black finish to start from.
If you purchased one of those pre-blackened.
Oh, perfect. You don't have to you can skip this whole step.
Cool. And it would be fine.
It'd be fine. You can just skip the step. The 11 by 14 is now nice, solid black. Now, here's the trick with your brushes. If you want your brushes to last a long, long time, you want to get all the paint out of them that you can now, and then you put it aside for a thorough washing after your painting session. Every time, wash with soap and water and lay flat to dry, and that will protect your brushes for a long time.
All right.
Now I'm going to dry this canvas, and John can talk to you about what we were talking about with the garage sale box, just in case you're interested.
I'll give some
answers. I will dry here.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
So while she's doing her drying break, I'm gonna hit that button. And so the garage sale box. It is. Jillian was asking, is this just for watercolors? No. As a matter of fact, it has both watercolor and acrylic, and surfaces for both, and brushes for both. And you still get colored pencils and watercolor pencils and some brush soap. So it's a box of a lot of stuff. And what it is that we had some really nice product that was just in excess from different shows and events we had. And so we put it together in what we thought was going to be a really good deal. And turns out it was really good. And I'm really happy that we don't have a whole lot more of them left, but we've got enough that, probably for the next, few, maybe this weekend we'll sell out. I don't know. It's hard to know because you guys come in and all of a sudden, like, bang, they all disappear. So, but we're down to the last of those. And some folks were asking, so real quick, the quill brush. Yeah, Gwen, I know whenever you see somebody who's about to disassemble a quill, you just like makes every hair on your go, no, don't do that. And what it is that the quill has a plastic or leather wrapping that's held down by wire.
Twisted wire.
Yeah, twisted wire. Sometimes it's even tied with filament and things like that, depending on how old world you get. But the ones you get from us, they have metal tie downs.
Yeah.
Don't remove those. Don't take the plastic off. They're shrink wrapped to hold it in place. They work really, really well.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's obvious. It's attached to the brush. It's not the outer plastic wrapping of the whole brush roll. It's obvious what it is, and that you just want to leave that there. But you wouldn't know that if you'd never saw that before. And it can, I think, look like we're gonna actually start putting a note and thing in our boxes,
Yeah. Do
just
not.
because we've gotten a lot of questions about that. All right, now the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this fluid acrylic and I'm gonna put it over here. I don't need that much, only a little bit. And you have a choice here. You can thin your white acrylic and splatter. That can be a little bit stringy sometimes if you don't get it perfect. You can use the fluid acrylic. Sometimes craft paint will do this really nicely too. Or you can individually stamp in stars
Stamp the stars.
with one little star at a time.
That's
I'm going to take a toothbrush here and flick a nice starry sky.
that's pretty good. I think you got it.
Big stars, little stars. I'm going to pretend that there's no city lights here.
It is
Make
a
a nice-
Bortle 1 sky. Or like we're going to go to Ireland and get a Bortle 0 sky. That's a astronomical nerd term for how much light pollution there is.
So much. So
And
much. So it's
zero
just
means
nice to have a few
zero.
little stars there.
Yeah.
And I take this and I actually wash my splatter brush out. This is just a toothbrush I bought in a pack of 10 toothbrushes, and because one of my kids wanted a rainbow travel toothbrush and it only came in a big pack for very little money. And so I've just been using this for splatter. It's the Eco ETBOO, if you want to see if that's still a deal out there. With Amazon, they raise prices as soon as anybody shows interest. It's just unreal.
But any medium, toothbrush thingy would probably do it.
Actually, the best is if it's too stiff to brush your teeth with. It's a nice splatter brush.
Extra firm.
Extra firm. Like the dentist is like, don't use that. It will ruin your gums and your teeth and do all these things. And you're like, but I thought better cleaning is better. No. But it's a very good splatter brush.
All right.
Okay, we're going to dry this thoroughly again. It can take a little bit longer because sometimes the dot splatters are a little thick, and so you might need a little extra time.
Nope. Yep. So she's just going. So what she was saying there is you really want to thoroughly dry your dots. And the reason is because those dots can smear as you're doing different things. And then you have comets and not stars. So they can be deceptively thick, and you want them to actually cure all the way through, and probably use your hair dryer on the lowest fan speed, because it will make them also, the force of the air can actually make them streak a little bit. Don't use heat. We've talked about that a little bit in the past. If you're new here, it doesn't help. It can only aggravate the paint. So, man, I think I just got distracted by questions in the chat. So make sure you thoroughly dry. Anya was asking, is Sherpa soap available in the website? It is in the garage sale boxes, and as a note on that, all of the first soap that I made was all hand cut, made with very patron stuff in mind. So
you're a little bit crooked on the cut.
Yeah, we got crooked on the cuts for sure. But I got
it just gives you extra soap on them. It's like it just gives you extra.
Yeah, but we'll go into that more later. But yes.
Okay. All right, so I have a 1-inch Princeton Select oval mop, and I do think a soft brush makes this next step significantly easier. A soft fan might work if you had a fan that's too soft to paint acrylic with. If all you've got is like a Deerfoot stippler, you could do this very, very slowly. I also have my round blenders would do this just in a slower way. You'd have to work it in smaller amounts, but you want a small brush for blending, and this has a nice filament. Now the ones I'm talking about, the 1-inch Princeton Select, they come in a black filament, which is actually hair. They come in a white filament, which is actually goat, and then they come in this brown to dark brown. That is the synthetic. That is what I use, is the synthetic, because it doesn't carry as much water. To that end, I'm going to go ahead and just get this up with some glazing liquid, and I'm going to grab some of my Phthalo Blue, Phthalo Green together, smidge of yellow, making kind of a glow color. And we'll get this a titch of white involved. And we're going to come here. If this is the lower third, We're going to start down a little bit low. We're going to just come across, maybe down a little bit. We can always put our trees back up over this, right? And then here, I'm going to start to brush upwards very gently, brush upwards. Just being so soft with it. If I need to get a little more glazing liquid in, I will. Now this kind of goes up a little more in the center. Sometimes I wipe off on a paper towel just to get extra paint off, and I'm just blending, 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 blending.
And that's very vertical strokes.
Very vertical strokes. We're just moving these towards the vertical.
This is the under Aurora.
Under Aurora. It's the under Aurora. And I'm going to take a little bit of blue. And I'm going to get a little bit of my glazing liquid into it. And I'm going to kind of come back down. And I'm going to brush a little blue back in.
Wow.
And then, now I don't know if it's picking it up on the camera, but it's really glowing blue.
Yeah, it really does.
Okay, then I'm going to wipe my brush and come here at the end and dust this out.
It's funny because if I look at it from the side angle, you can see how glossy the new layer is, and it can against the black. And then from overhead, you can really see the color coming in.
Yeah. All right, so we have a nice sort of green low, and then it switches into a nice sort of blue. And then
we say thank you to Heather. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, thank you.
And then
I'm going to wipe this off, and I think I'm going to come here with a dry brush and just
that's
blend these together with a dry, soft brush. Same kind of brush, dry, soft brush. You could use a fan. Any soft brush you have that's a little too soft for acrylic painting is a good blender. And that's just to help that effect.
This is a very, very soft blend using that clean, dry brush.
Clean, dry brush, just creating a very, very soft blend into it. Now we'll put that aside as well. I keep a bunch of these brushes around just so that I have a little bit of room in that area. It does help, I think, a good bit.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to dry everything with my hair dryer.
Dry it all.
Yeah, we are going to paint on this Aurora till it's a glow, a glow, a glow, a glow.
It does seem glowy already, so I'm interested to see where this is going to go next. So I will give you guys my little disclaimer about pushing the commercial button. I try to do it at the breaks and where I'm just going to be talking and you're not going to miss anything else. But if I don't push it at this time, it likes to insert commercials like in the middle of the painting automatically, and which we don't like that. So what I try to do, if you see the commercials pop up, I only push the button when she's hair drying something, and you're just going to hear me talk about like nonsense. So you won't really miss anything. And if you do get bumped away for a commercial, you hit that live button and bang, it'll bring you right up to it. And that's okay. So that's just something that YouTube redoes. So we live and die by the algorithm.
Boy, don't we? All right. So what I have here is 3/8 inch filbert grainers. If you don't have this, you could use a Deerfoot stippler. If you don't have a Deerfoot stippler, you could use the round blender. Or you can use your blending brush, again, if that's all you've got in this soft brush. But I like this because this is going to give me little extra filamenties off. I'm going to come here and get a little glazing liquid into it and grab some white. And sometimes I wipe off the extra paint because I don't want it to be too much. And I'm going to come here and a little more white than that. It's a delicate dance. And just brush up. Just blending. 3.
3. Let's see if it reset. It thinks that it reset. Okay. Sometimes that does it. Sometimes it just, I gotta go boop boop, and it's like the equivalent of unplugging it and plugging it back in. Sometimes it works.
Now, if you had zinc paint, this is a great place to use that zinc paint, by the way. If you're carrying some zinc in your brush bucket. Going to continue this up and brushing, brushing, brushing. This is so when I put my purple glow over it, there's some hot spots of purple glow.
Yep. And the white, again, is so that it makes your paint pop.
Right.
And especially when student paints, sometimes they're called student paints. They're
especially with student paints.
Budget paints, those, they don't cover over black quite as well. So putting this white down will make them pop. And that's good for even pro paints. So, because yellows and can oftentimes not be as opaque.
Well, and in Aurora Borealis, these are such transparent, glowing techniques that you've got to do a couple little tricks to get the glow going. And just being super gentle with this. Blendy, 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 blendy. I'm going to go off my canvas a little bit so that my Aurora comes across here nicely.
You could paint it all the way right around the corner if you wanted to.
By the way, I think this would be a really good big painting in a living room. Like a big 48 by 60 would be gorgeous. I know I'm always encouraging you guys to go big. Okay, so I had a little stronger white than I wanted. What I did is I came back with a little glazing liquid, and I'm coming back. If you only have water, you've just got to allow this to dry longer.
Oh, man, that's what happened. See, my side camera is angled wonky. I was like, why is that? And I remembered Vigo, the kitty, was over there, so I'm going to have to go move that camera. It got bumped.
It got bumped?
Yeah.
I bump it? Or Vigo bump it?
I think Vigo, it was a kitty.
Because I'm as equally likely to have bumped it.
No, I just got to center it a little bit more.
I'm trying to create these little variances in up and down. Now, the glazing liquid slows down the drying time of your paint so much that you've got to calculate extra time with the hairdryer. It's a lot more white. Glaze that out.
Glaze. This is pretty neat. You're just vertically, it's just importance as the vertical.
Yeah, we're just getting the motion up into the sky. Now, some of this kind of comes over in a little turn, and so we do want to capture that.
That is an interesting little bit. Let's see if I can.
Just cover that up, just a little bit of a turn there. Just a little S curve to that. Now I know I'll be coming across here, and we're going to do some chalk and everything to like get our little folded area, but we want to grab our purple glow as much as we can. So to do that next part, I'm going to want to dry this because I don't want to mix the white into the purple I'm about to mix.
Well, there she goes. She's going to dry. And oh man, I got a wonderful little I'll read this, Catherine, to her in just a second. So as soon as that comes up there, I'll give it a read. So thank you so much. And thank you guys for joining us. We really appreciate you guys all being here with us today. Spending your time. It's just lovely to have you guys all here hanging out. So thank you for being part of our art family. Thank you for hanging out. You can like, comment, subscribe, share, do all the little human-y things down there and the buttons down that are below. And let's see. Boop. You're back.
From outer space.
No,
Right.
we're still in outer space.
Yeah, we are.
We're on step 5.
Step 5. Now I'm going to come down to my Dox Purple and my Quinacridone Magenta. I'm going to mix them together and create kind of like a nice warm purple. A little more biased to the magenta than the Dox is a little bit dark. And I will go ahead and brush out the too much paint on my brush, and I'm going to come here.
Well, you're jumping right into it.
I'm going to brush.
Deep purple. Oh, that's pretty. This is nice.
Just delicately. Take your time with this. This isn't something to rush through. I'm going to leave a little bit of this down here because I got to blend green into the purple.
That's going to be a trick. Green into purple?
Green into purple is definitely going to be a little bit of a trick.
Now, why would that be a trick?
Well, because they're not, when you mix the Dox Purple together with the green, you actually get a blue. But in some greens with some purples, you get a brown.
Mm.
Now, we are doing a trick here by making it Dioxazine Purple and Phthalo Blue, or Dioxazine Purple and Phthalo Green will take you into more of a blue.
That's why those color combinations are important in this lesson.
I just take my time with this. We're just going to spend the time. You guys were so excited about doing the sky, and we're not going to rush through it. We're going to stay on it until it's just where we want it to be.
I saw there's a
There we
good
go.
question here.
It's a little bit reflective on the camera, I can tell, but it is.
Oh yeah, when I go from overhead,
Mm.
it's just there's a reflection from both ways, but definitely as it dries, we can see it less shiny. Yeah, but we can definitely see the blendiness.
And you can see how the white underneath kind of creates a sense of the flow of everything.
Yeah.
It's a nice trick to play.
Now, is
Not
it
like a bad trick, it's a good trick.
if you had gel medium, how would that be a good thing?
That
to
way
use?
it wouldn't slow down the drying time, but it would allow you to glaze.
Would allow you to glaze.
Mm-hmm. You'd be allowed to do transparent coats. It just would work very quickly. And you would have a lot of workability time in the paint, but you would absolutely be able to glaze. And if I didn't have glazing liquid and all I had was like a soft gel or gel medium, I would absolutely use it.
We had a loving hug and warning of snow is coming. I think we have a local. Catherine was like, love all your tutorials, and the snow is coming.
I got a puffer. I have a puffer jacket. I do. This is looking nice. So we're just painting this here. This is one of those things when you paint this kind of stuff, it gets you lots of oohs and ahs from people in your life that, they just don't know how you would have painted this glowing background canvas.
See, I love it.
Because they can't know all the steps it takes, right? So they just see the end result and they're like, wow, you're like magic.
Another fun
What you
thing,
are is just patient.
it. And if you have a sci-fi person in your life, you throw a TARDIS or a Millennium Falcon or, the Enterprise up in there and bang, man, that's just a sci-fi gift.
I'll tell you something. I've been teaching art online for 10 years, and maybe getting on more than 10 years now. So I have painted Galaxy a bunch of different ways. And so I am really down to what's going to work with your paint and my paint at the same time, no matter what our paint is, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Come up here and just blendy, 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 blend, little glow, little glow, little glow. Even though like this edge glow, it goes against the black of space, it will show up at different angles and give a residual glow there as well.
Yeah, and that's why we always say that seeing a painting in person is so different. So different.
Yeah.
That's
just coming across, doing the glow, glow, glow.
Now, I'll say that there are lots and lots of ways you can get this effect, but or get a similar effect, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
But this particular effect built this way has come from years of doing this like this online.
Yeah.
So,
there's a fun fan brush technique, but you got to have pro paints to make it work, and you got to have a really good fan brush. There are other things that have to be going right in your painting experience for it to come out. It looks really awesome on my painting, but can be frustrating if maybe you're painting Artist Loft basics,
yeah,
or Liquitex basics, because it's Artist Loft and then Liquitex basics, because they don't do the pro paint anymore. It's just such a shame. They had a really nice line of pro paint.
But the nice thing about if you follow this process, really, no matter what paint you have, you'll get a nice effect.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You just slow down and follow the process. Don't rush through. Sometimes we get into painting, we want to rush through because we want to get to the good part.
Right.
Part at the end where we see our painting and our painting is just gorgeous. But look, we're getting lots of little glow going. Now I can take a little bit of my white and come over to my mixture here. And I can also
Oh, that's nice.
highlight too.
You added a little white there?
To the mix. Over to create even more dimensionality. So you've got a little bit of room.
And that was there was a question about that a little earlier. Can you get the same effect by putting white through the wet colors and brushing up with a dry brush to get the Aurora effect?
Dry brush, you might be able to if you have a very delicate line and you've got good soft brushes that will let you work. I've got a little white in my paint now, and you can see how that's impacting the Aurora. Now my glow is a little bit stronger, but one of the things that I think is important in painting is that we get to have more than nature gives us. And we want a nice, dramatic show in our painting. You know, starrier stars, glowier glows. Okay, so rinse out your filbert grainer.
Rinse.
Certainly not done. And we're going to come here and we're going to dry everything with our hair dryer. Dry it.
Dry. And thank you, Angela. I have to say thank you so very much. Really appreciate all the support from you guys here. It means a lot. All the donations, the support, the patronage. It helps keep the electricity working so that we can turn the lights on and keep the cameras going and do all that kind of stuff. And we super duper appreciate it. It makes all the difference. So thank you. And don't forget to check out stuff in the description down below. We can find traceables, reference images, links to the website, all that kind of good stuff. Yep. Like Mod Quinacridone says, when using your hair dryer, be sure to use the cool setting because heat can cause color shift. And that's really mostly with beginner paints or student paints where it will cause problems, but heat is not good for the paint in general. So it can cause it to get soft and sticky and, you know, just cold, dry paint is good. And all you need is just air moving over it to get that to be happening. Woo. Are we dry?
We are dry. Now I'm going to take a chalk pencil. This is just to guide me. You could take your Dritz chalk tool. I have blue in right now, so I don't want to use that. I would switch it out to white chalk. Or I'm going to take a white chalk. I just need a little line to guide some artful flow that I'm going to do. So I'm going to take a little line here. And swirl it over towards the right. And I'm going to make another little, it comes down. Maybe another little flowing line here. Gonna arch that up. And I'm gonna arc that down. So that gives me auroras that I can kind of paint in more like dramatically. And so my sky will be more flowy. Because you want more.
Mm-hmm.
Come and grab some glazing liquid and come over here to my white. And we do a similar effect that we did for, oh, I want to make sure I got all the purple out though, or switch brushes. I want bright color. Use water or dry brush as an alternative way to get this effect. There we go. That's a nice little. These will give little directionalities to our auroras. Now when I come around this turn, I will kind of tip my brush on its edge very carefully. Come back around. So blends there. That's how we make a turn on an aurora. See how we turned that little sucker?
I do.
Sometimes it'll come up through the one in front of it. And when I want to make long little spikes up and down, I can just take the brush on its little edge here.
Now, if you don't have a chalk pencil, you could just use a chunk of chalk, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Just
Like
gets chalk from
chalkboard chalk.
Yeah, just chalkboard chalk. There we go. That's a little bit
And thank you, Mary Kate.
interesting.
Wanted to say thank you to Mary Kate and Angela. Make sure I got to say thank you for all the loving support in chat.
Oh,
Really
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm just kind of just making sure that I've got nice clear glaze, not too heavily loaded.
Now you can really see that brush flicking up there. And you kind of want that brushiness to it because that adds to the effect, yeah?
Yeah. That gives it the little kind of like streaking that you want out of your auroras.
Now that's not a grainer, is it?
That is a filbert grainer. Still
Oh,
a
it is a
grainer.
filbert grainer, okay.
Still a filbert grainer.
That's why it gets that extra streakiness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, you could use a deerfoot stippler. You could use a round. You could use a fan. There's other brushes you can use to get a similar effect. You could very carefully do it with a round. What you're looking for is the effect. The brush can make the effect easier, but what you're looking for is the effect.
Hmm.
Those will go behind the trees nicely.
Mmm.
Take a little glaze over here, grab a little white. Again, you could use zinc here if you wanted to.
Yeah, you're using titanium white?
I'm using titanium white with a glazing liquid, but you could use zinc.
I was just reading some questions about that.
I'll bring some of this up here.
Brush, 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 brush.
Brush, brush, brush. That's all we're doing. We're just brushing up, trying to make a nice little pattern that we can paint our green, and so there's pops of glow. We're exaggerating the effect because we can, because we're artists.
Chrissy says she's a big fan, been watching our videos for the last couple years, and this is her first live. Welcome.
Welcome. As when I come to the corner, I turn it on its edge. And then I can bring it around easier.
So why are you doing these weird curves?
Because they're what auroras do. And we can put them in and we can exaggerate what's there and make it even cooler.
So the reason why you're kind of doing this because the Aurora Borealis makes these ribbons in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And this is sort of replicating that ribbon creation. You know, I don't know if it's a scientific, but it certainly is. It like emotionally captures it very well. Like I am so blessed to have seen auroras for the first time moving here to Ann Arbor.
Well, sometimes they're just a pink glow in the sky, but sometimes there are these dancing little ribbons.
Yeah.
Depending on how everything is hitting. There we go. That looks good. And we want to just make sure that things like, so it just feels like it's just glowing behind these trees.
Mm.
And doing the white first really helps us get there, right? That way we can come back with like a glaze over it and really still get a pop. And chalk lines just help me keep the flow of the ribbons in my head.
Right.
And having the light and dark will also kind of exaggerate that.
Mm.
Now, some of this is going to be behind trees, and we know that. But even this will peek out between the branches of the trees, and it's going to make a nice big difference.
Yeah.
You know, how it's going to go. All right. We are going to want to dry everything.
Dry everything.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. While I go over here and say thank you to all the wonderful people who have been here in chat with us. It's so nice that we all get to be here and paint on a day like this. And man, it's something that I really love that we get to do. So thank you for being here and chatting. I've been watching you guys here in the comments. Nancy, you're asking, can I use water instead of liquid glaze? You know, you could, but the issue is glazing medium helps extend it by giving the paint more body that doesn't have any color to it. Whereas water thins the whole process out, so you don't have as much binder, you don't have as much pigment. So a glaze gives a slightly different effect than what water will, which is why sometimes they use it. You can get the effect by just using water, but it's much more difficult to replicate. So it's not that anything can't be done, just some of these tools make it a lot easier.
Some of them make it a lot easier. And some of them are six of one, half a dozen of another.
Yep.
All right. So now I'm going to take my grainer again, and I'm going to take a little yellow over to my Phthalo Blue, Phthalo Green mix. Grab a little bit of glaze here. I'm going to start to brush up.
Oh, that's super green.
I could get into the round blender again, but I want to have more control over what I'm doing. Getting a little white involved. And I like to keep my brush strokes sort of flowing up as if there's air blowing everything up.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna try to see if we can do that pluggy thing again because the YouTube is not having happy.
Do you want me to stop for a second? And
yeah, give me just a second here.
All right, I'll just brush this one out. And you'll notice as you brush this aqua over the...
Okay, we're gonna hope that worked. It seems like sometimes it does.
Now, every once in a while, I might come into my yellow with a little bit of my glaze. And see, paint those up a little more glowing. We are really painting our Aurora today.
It is there.
All right, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be glazing this with the aqua and then coming back and popping with a little yellow as we need to create maybe a hotter center. All right, I'm going to take a little bit of my Phthalo Blue and Phthalo Green again. And a lot of my glazing liquid. very carefully glaze over this, letting the pattern that we did in the white sort of show through. Maybe bring a little bit back through here. Up and down on the brushing. And again, sometimes when we go up and down, it'll go a little bit blue. Do we have a little Willy Mouse online? Do we have a little Willy Mouse online?
Yeah, we had other people streaming in the house. I was like, wow.
Oh, right now?
Yeah. Just so I don't know if that affected anything, but it's done.
Just very carefully keeping that sort of there. To make those interesting. Nice green glow. Look at us go. With our nice green glow.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's the phthalo blue, phthalo green, sometimes a little bit of cad yellow. We'll come over from this side. Again, you'll see the blue go blue.
Right.
And this is a great way to get that subtle blue transition without having to like work out the blue. Hopefully you can see it at the angle.
Yeah. You can see it more from the overhead.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
When we dry it, I think it'll show up really well.
On the side view, you can see the brush strokes, but it's harder to see the color
because the glaze.
So shiny.
Because it's so shiny. Shiny makes things hard to see on camera. Wet paint being a problem in that way. You can see we're just bringing this all into the green. Now every once in a while I'm going to get my little glaze here and come into my yellow. I don't like to have it everywhere. I like to have it some places. Just because it'll create a little bit of pop.
Mm.
And we're doing all of this without neon paint. Could we do this with neon paint? We can, and it can have a really beautiful effect, right? Because the pigment itself is luminous. Even when it's not under black light, it's luminous.
Has a higher reflective index.
Yeah, but it photographs terrible. Just to warn you, if you paint with your neon paints, it's so hard to photograph that for
anything
for online. So just know that it's not you. It's just the way camera sees those types of reflective pigments.
Yeah, it takes just some photo manipulation to get it.
Now I'm going to dry this and take a look at this.
Look.
Take a look.
I think you did it.
Yeah, I
close.
like it.
It looks like that reference.
I like it. Actually, it should be a little more.
More?
It should be a little more than the reference, because that's what paint's for. We should go a little further.
All right, we can do that. A little further, she says. All right, so we'll see how this. Going to see what happens. Otherwise, I think, yeah, we got more of this stuff coming this through the holidays. She's got a lot of really good seasonal projects that you guys are going to see coming down the pipe. There's trying to think if there's anything particular. She's always working on something, and so I'm not sure what's for the patrons that's just sort of in development versus what she's posted up, because a lot of times she'll paint stuff that she posts up in the patron group for them to give feedback on, or sometimes name. That's another cool thing that happens. And of course, if you want to join us on Facebook, we have a group out there. There's links about that in the description below. I'm sure that if you are in chat. Oh, and man, if you have not joined us in a live show chat, it's a lot of fun. Do try to do that if you have a chance. It's fun to be here.
Oh, that's looking good. That's looking so good in the neighborhood. I still want to play with it a little bit, though.
I must have missed a question here. What is the Sherpa's favorite thing to paint? That's interesting, because favorite is not what she's painted the most of.
And then it has changed over the years. Like as I've painted more things or been asked to paint more things, I wouldn't necessarily have painted a manatee but for you guys. But I love painted it. That was super fun. Yeah, I think I love to paint horses. I think I love landscapes. I love fantasy scenes like this. I'm hoping that shows. I really like this type of imaginative, playful kind of landscape that we just take something that's real and we get to push it a little bit. I love spacescapes just for fun for painting.
There's always been dragons.
Yeah. Dragons are always good. They're always challenging to paint.
Yeah.
They're challenging to paint, but they're always a good paint. Horses, florals, love landscapes. It's really fun to paint a landscape. I'm working on you guys had I think it's an AI image that y'all found that you really, really like, that you want me to paint. And so I am painting a painting, not from that one, because I couldn't verify its source. And it's a gorgeous, gorgeous winter landscape. It's coming in, and I've got to put in my subject matter, which is this red bench and this lantern. But like just painting the trees was a joy. That was really special for me. So there's a lot of things I actually really like painting. A lot of things. Yeah. All right. I'm going to come here, and I think I will take a round, this round, and we're going to paint some trees in. Now, these trees kind of are going to curl in from the sides and then straighten out towards the center. There's sort of a fisheye effect going on here. So we're going to try to kind of duplicate that. I'm going to take my number 6 sepia round, and I'll come right here. We're going to see if we can, I don't know if we need to glow it up a little more. We'll have to see. I'm going to do a little trunk coming up. It's kind of at a curve. And we're going to just paint out a little bit of a tree here. I have to see if I've got enough glow to contrast it. Hard to tell when it's wet. It's pretty glowy. What are you seeing on your end, babe? You have such a nice... Okay.
And I have to turn my microphone on. Huh? But it's pretty glowy. I like it. You can see them. You can see them real clearly from overhead. They look super nice. Super nice. I like these. I like the silhouette against this. And this is part where it takes some bravery on the part of the painter because you just painted this beautiful Aurora in, and
You
now you're
could
like,
use the traceable here to get the rest of the painting in instead of freehanding it in if you were feeling like that is not what I'm going to be doing with my time. This might be a good time to have fluid black paint. So you're not having to constantly thin your black paint. You could do a fan brush effect across here, but they would just look like fan brush trees, and I'm wanting some trees that are a little more. I might straighten it out a little bit. Let's give myself a thicker trunk. I'm bringing drops of water and thinning it into the paint so it flows off my brush easier. I could also use like the glazing liquid if I wanted to. Us building in our outline for our little trees. And just painting out these little brushes with these little sort of random brush strokes to show thin and little parts of the branches. And then through here, I like pop lots of little randoms so where the trees feel like they might be flowing together. And then I fill it in solid.
mm.
Little trees. Not reassuring. Okay, I'm going to come in here and make some right here. I'm not leaned at all.
Oh, the camera got bumped.
Hmm?
Camera got bumped.
That's what it is. I'm not leaning at all. I haven't wanted to say anything, but I was
Thank you, Ramona.
like I'm having to lean left to stay out of it.
Sorry.
I mean, right. Can't tell my right from my left.
Thank you, Ramona.
Thank you, Ramona.
Really appreciate the support, guys. That's a great big sticker. A big thank you.
What's the sticker of?
It's a little samurai dog holding a big like trophy thing.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you. Is it a Shiba Inu?
It could be. Hard to tell. Could be a Ronin too. We don't know if he's samurai.
I'm not. I just know they have Shiba Inu stickers, so that's why I was like,
I think it is a Shiba Inu.
funny little dogs.
I think we have one live next door.
I know. We have so many cool dogs living in the neighborhood. All the dogs have such personality.
Yeah, and do not mistake a Shibu for a corgi.
How would you?
Well, they're sort of the same size, shape, little dog that goes. And if you weren't super familiar, you might make the mistake, but not twice.
I'm kind of taking this tree down to the base. And you can see how that's like. What's really nice is that there's little bits of the sky that shows through the leaves. One of my first videos that ever did really well on the channel was of an Aurora Borealis with a tree line. It was all done with like fan brush and some of those earlier techniques. Planting a little tree between these trees. Just gotta plant a tree. Top, top, top. Little touches. I let it be almost dots.
Right.
I'm not building ladders though. And what that means is that it doesn't have obvious rungs of the tree that you would climb. That's a real easy thing to fall into, just so you know. It's just okay to take your time here. Remember how we studied our pine tree?
Yeah.
This is a bit of a study of silhouette. We're studying the silhouette. Now, advice I have when you have a reference on hand that you're also using besides just my painting as a reference is you don't owe the reference anything. So if it has a couple of trees that are next to each other that look ugly, you don't got to paint those two trees.
Right.
If they're a hot mess in the photograph, they're not going to improve in your painting. You know, the trash heap next to the cute mailbox with the flowers, you don't got to paint the trash heap next to the mailbox.
Right.
You'll notice I leave a lot of air and stuff that can go through. Okay to give yourself a little tiny tree here. It's fun tree line.
Those are really just coming in.
They just come in. You just plant them and grow them.
Man, I keep pushing the button wrong. Sorry, guys.
We have any questions while we paint a million little trees?
I'm going to try to get it all back on the right page there. Million little trees. Let's see here. Questions. So many questions. Mostly talking to each other right now, though.
That's wonderful. I love it when you guys talk to each other.
May scooch back.
So we've got the halfway here, and we have a pretty nice little tree line going. And we have a lovely glowing effect going. We didn't have to use any neon paints to get it. Not that there's anything wrong with using neon paints, but it's just nice to know that you can get bright, vibrant colors from your own paint bucket.
You're using a round there?
I'm using a number 6 round, sepia round. Okay, so I have a set that you get from my art store. It comes in the 6 and I think the 2, or some of them come with a little bright. So you can either get a nice tiny little bright or a nice number 2 round, which is just a tiny, tiny sharp little round. It'd be fun to paint the little trees with that too. They do little tiny, tiny bits. And these are very nice round brushes. Now I'm going to come over here. Kind of arc that one in. Just a hint of an arc to it. Take a little bit of water over to the black, thin it out. Roll the brush to roll the paint out. Let's
Just more of the trees, eh?
just more tree. So many trees.
We got
We
quiet.
gotta put them there so that when we add the fire, we got a background, right? If you like this, I have an old one from like maybe 8, 9 years ago of a guy and his dog at a campfire.
Yeah.
Different Aurora Borealis. This is probably the most ornate Aurora Borealis that we've done. Getting a little bit of kind of a tree coming around the side here. And paint this a little bit more solid. Kind of coming up the side, so there's a bit of a fisheye.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Just a little fisheye.
A little bit. You don't got to give everybody vertigo. Just a little bit of a hint.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to plant another little, maybe tall tree right here. And then maybe another little second trunk next to it to see if I can pull this one off. It may or may not work. We'll find out in a second.
Just add those trees.
Just adding them. Little touches of the brush, little crisscrosses, little dots of paint. You just take your favorite parts and then you put those in. Now I'm not going to paint any skinny, skinny dead trees because I just don't think they'll add substantively to what we're doing. But I thought the DoubleTree might be kind of interesting in the silhouette.
Which glazing liquid are you using?
I'm using the Satin Glazing Liquid by Golden Artist Colors. Now, I really do recommend this product. It's a slow drying extender. It slows down the drying time of your paint. It allows you to glaze and allows you to blend easier. That is what it does. And it extends the colors. In other words, they last longer.
Hmm.
Because the medium, you add the medium to it, then you have more paint, essentially.
Right.
So that's how that works. And I like it a lot. I don't, there are other slow drying products out there. Grumbacher has the Grumbacher retarder. They may rename it at some point, but that's what they're factually called in paint lines because it's slowing down the drying time of paint. So while we don't use that medically anymore, we still use that in like slowing drying time of paint products and industrial products where it makes sense and belongs. There we go. That one's kind of nice with a little air. I like that. So I was happy I did that one. Little tree there. So Grumbacher makes a real good one. Golden has a one that is just pure slow drying. It is the problem with the full product where it's only for drying, slowing down the drying time of the paint. If you get the mixture wrong, your painting won't dry properly and it can become very tacky and then just not be drying. Whereas with the glazing liquid, even if you were to use pure glazing liquid and just a little bit and you were allowed to air dry, you're only looking at a couple hours before it's dry. Dry. Now, the thing with all slow drying extenders is that at some point during the brushing process, it'll start to become tacky and have drag on the brush. That just means that's the end of the workability window. That's all that is. You've just come to the end of the workability window. Let's keep just tapping that out. See our nice little tree line here?
Yeah.
So some of what makes our tree line enjoyable are these little ins and out bits. The ups and downs. That makes it kind of wonderful, I think.
Yeah.
Little drop of, this is what I mean by thinning your paint. Like if you wanted to thin your white, you just bring drops of water over to the paint. And you modify it using water to improve its flow. Now I'm kind of spacing out my trees a little bit just to give myself an easy time painting them in.
Yeah. The spruces.
Yeah, some little pine, some deciduous tree, some little deciduous fellow. Now I use the things I use, not that you couldn't use other things in place of them, but because they make my painting job much easier. So if you see me using it,
Right.
it's not because I'm sponsored or secret lit, like any of that. It's because I use it in my own studio. Like I have a Mister bottle of water always near. I have my fluid paint. I have my glazing liquid. I've got the brushes that I have, and I have a set number of brushes. I don't just constantly go buy new brushes at the art store. So that you guys could potentially collect up what I have over time. And you can find a lot of stuff in my art store. I have an art store so that you have a place like that for sure. The stuff I'm using on the show is in. It's unfortunately only available to the contiguous United States. If you're in Canada, I recommend King's Framing and Art. They have good shipping. There's another really cool art store in Canada, and if you know its name, shout it out. If you've got a good art store in Canada or in the UK or in Australia or anywhere else outside of the US, shout out your favorite art store.
Mm-hmm.
Help other people find good places to shop. I know that if you're in Puerto Rico, you want to go to Alexander Cruz's art store for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. He's the largest art store in Puerto Rico. He keeps a lot of the products that I like and even more. And he's a painter. He has classes and stuff there. So he keeps good stuff in for his students. He does not play around. Just kind of painting out the little white spots that splattered down further than I expected. Choo, choo, choo.
That turned out pretty nice.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. I am happy with it. Now is a good time to dry. So we're getting some very colorful, gorgeous work here. I love this.
This is turning out quite nice.
I like it a lot.
All right.
Okay, let's dry.
You dry. It's drying time. So let's see here. Once it gets tacky, can you do anything to save it and keep going? Okay, I'll have Cinnamon answer this because there are many ways of solving this. So don't worry. It happens. Paint dries, and so I think that there's going to be a couple of things that she'll say that I don't want to just sort of, because I'm not totally sure. I mean, I could kind of have an idea how I'd solve it, but I'm not super sure. You know what I mean? So I'm going to wait for the expert to come back after this drying break, which seems to be dry. And you have to do that. You have to thoroughly dry it so that it, you can put the fire on next, and that'll be fun. So, okay, I'll ask the question to the expert though.
Okay. I will drink my kombucha while I'm answering questions.
Roserna would like to know.
Hi, Roserna. How are you doing?
Once it gets tacky, can you do anything to save it and keep going?
No, you dry it and then you do another layer over it.
Okay.
Sometimes if you get more glazing medium in it, it will, but that's really iffy. That's a moment by moment reality. Like really got to be like, if you add a little more glazing liquid, does it immediately start to brush up again? You're still within workability time, but if you're going over it, it still feels like it's just smooth stuff going over tacky stuff.
Yeah.
Then it's easier to dry and then glaze or blend again over it. But you should have a pretty good amount of workable time. And that's why I recommend it. Like you can do all these techniques just by moving very quickly.
Right.
Right. Or doing thinning with water and then allowing to dry more time. Right. There are ways to do these techniques without the mediums, but the mediums do make it a lot easier. We like it. It helps a bunch.
Now, Chrissy, for first-time painters, the best place to start is our Big Art Quest.
Well, no. The beginner acrylic painting course.
That's what I meant. The beginning acrylic painting course. We change the names of some of these things sometimes. Sorry.
Well, the Big Art Quest was a really cool program, but if you went through it with me, it was amazing. But if you have to follow your way back through, it's a hot mess.
It's just sort of like we wandered over here, we wandered over there.
It was fun. The Big Art Quest is every week I just did a new thing that I just explained art supplies, art techniques, art, just basics that you would need to know that you wouldn't know if you didn't have, like you didn't grow up in a house with art like I did, and you didn't have the opportunity to go to some art school and do some different things. It just would get you caught up so you could go into the art store and be like, I know what all of this is.
Yeah.
Or you would see a technique or you would do that. My goal was so that a person doing that course could go into any sort of retreat or whatever and be able to paint along with anyone. And that did work out really well, but it was a hot mess because I did it by mood. Like this week I'm into doing shadows. And this week I'm into doing mediums or surfaces. And it just went on. The beginner acrylic painting course is a organized, thought out, sequential, full art course. It is.
There it is.
They put it in.
They linked us.
Yeah, it's 7 introductory videos that takes about 2 years off of your learning time, in understanding just basic concepts, and then 10 of your first paintings to put those concepts and techniques into practice, so you can turn it into 1 and 2 hoot painting confidently.
Yeah.
Doesn't turn you into 3-hoop painter. It turns you into confident 1-hoop and 2-hoop painter. Like if you just haven't painted before, or it's been a really long time, or acrylic is new to you, it's like a great course for that. And it's free. It's completely free.
Free.
Free. All right. I'm going to grab my little chalk again, I think.
Are you?
Yeah.
All right.
Grab my little chalk again.
There's a link there to that
here.
for you guys. And it'll tell you all the materials you need for your first time. So it'll go through all that for you.
Oh, it's over here. So I'm going to come here and I want to have a fire. So I'm going to sort of sketch out a little bit of a fire. You could use the traceable here if you wanted to, just so I know where I'm going to be. You're going to start the next round of fire. Oh. And I just draw that up. You can use the traceable if you're like not confident in drawing fire. But it's really just swirls and little transforms. And then I'm going to maybe take this down a little bit. I'm going to paint in rocks. And then another little rock. I just make shapes for the rocks. Again, if it's a weird rock in the photograph, you're not obligated to paint a weird rock in your painting. Right? You're not responsible for how somebody constructed their fire and which stone they chose. Like you as an artist, if you were going to paint it, would probably very specifically and thoughtfully and artfully choose stones. The person out there making a campfire is like, I just need to surround this with some rocks that contain the fire and possibly give me a place to sit, but generally just contain the fire. So when you're doing this for yourself, you can absolutely give yourself more interesting rocks. And that rock comes there. That goes behind, and it's sort of a ellipse. We're drawing an ellipse of stones. There we go. Now I won't necessarily follow. A little log here. So that's how we get the little logs there. And then around this, like all around this, I'm just going to draw it coming out around this. Coming down here. We're going to have a glow. It kind of sits around that. All right. John's going to be a minute. So let me see. John? Yeah, he's going to be a minute. Let me see if I can find us, and then I will. No, I need a switch. I'm getting ready to paint, and I was trying to get to the thing to keep talking. But if you're back, then I'm okay. I'm going to be painting, so I need a step.
You need a step. Okay.
Yeah, you could use the traceable at this stage, but you know. Now I'm going to come here, and I have my handy dandy number 12 Princeton Select Round Blender, and I've been asked recently if I have tried these. I gave the other ones to my kids, which is these the Golden Maple blenders. These are a smudge brush, not a blender brush. And they carry too much water. I really tried them against each other, and I'm not a fan. But I did love them for dry brushing, and I gave them to the kids for miniatures, and they're fantastic for that. But I like, if you'll notice, the shape of these two things is very, very different. And this shaping and the fact that this is a mix of hair, like synthetic and hair, gives it a little more stiffness and keeps it from being overly waterlogged. That is why I'm picking these. Now I'm going to go ahead and get it wet. And that's just me. Everybody has their personal preferences. My mom is in love with the golden maples. I gave it a go because you never know. You recommend each other stuff and to see how they are. And sometimes things are a great fit and sometimes they're not. It wasn't a good fit for me, but I do love a round blender like with the fire of 1,000 suns. So I'm going to take a little bit of orange here. I'm going to bring it over into my black. And I'm going to begin to coming back from the stone, more black. I'm using black to create a gradation. The other thing too is that this does a better blend. And they both carry a lot of paint where they're going. Just blend it out, blend it out, blend it out. Little circles. If I need to get more black paint, I can come back in and soften that. We just want to create a glow starting around. So I just come back with more black to blend that in. And I'll be coming back into it to get I might mix this just a little more into the red. Back into the black. I think I'm going to mix it a little more into the red so it's got a little bit more of a red glow. And softly, softly blend that back in. Round blenders are like worth their weight in gold. This is the Princeton Select round blender, and I'm not alone in loving this brush. Chuck Black considers it his most #1 blender brush. A lot of professional artists are like crazy for this brush, and for a reason. Not on the palette. I'm gonna put it here at the corner if it'll go. Yay! Barely, but yay! I'm gonna sip it. I'm gonna sip it. Mute me. I got coffee. I'm gonna sip it.
Got coffees. I got coffees too. I don't mute when I sip my coffee. It's very sippy. Very delicious.
But my point to that is about brushes is that we all have our favorites. We all have what we like. And so, you've got to find your favorites. And listening to your teachers to say what their favorites is can help you find your favorites, but in the end of the day, it's still got to be your favorites. They have to make your painting experience easier, not just mine, but yours. So it's good to test out a few things and take a couple recommendations and see what fits for you. Just. Now I'll come back and blend that out a little bit. I'm just wanting to add this little glow. And you can see it's just starting to glow around the fireplace. Glow around the fire. Can come in and take a little more yellow in there. Come back here and get a little more black. Maybe out here it's a little more yellow. And then I'll come in and get more black in my brush. More red if I need to. See, I'm just blending back and forth, getting that soft edge. That's what we're working is that soft glow. Put too much paint in there. I'm going to rinse out. Take a towel and wipe all the extra moisture out. I'm back into my red and yellow, but mostly red. I'm back into the black. And black. But regardless, you do want to have some blenders in your brush bucket. Whatever blenders you get, you need to find a blender that you like. Because acrylic paint fights blending. So you need tools like glazing liquids. You need tools that help you get to the blending that you're looking to create. So we're starting to get a little bit of a glow. A little bit of a
Those little mms.
Right?
Looking good.
Now I'm going to take a little bit of my orange. And I'm going to get my glazing liquid. A little bit of that. And I'm going to come up around where my fire is going to be. I'll paint into it a little bit. Come up over my fire a little bit.
Wow, that looks cool.
I'm just going to now wipe out the brush on my towel. And blend out this glow. And you need a little room because you got to paint your fire up into it. See how the glows are starting to grow?
Mm-hmm.
And always come back with black. We'll be so glad for the glow.
Oh.
We will be very glad for the glow. Okay. Once you have worked out however you're going to work it out, and if I didn't have this brush, then I could use a Deerfoot stippler. If I didn't have a Deerfoot stippler, I could use this. If I didn't have any of this, but I bought one of the golden maple smudge brushes, I could, using a very careful dry brushing technique or wiping out technique, get it to do. But you just don't want it to carry so much water.
And so I got a question here for Tess, and I just wanted to say thank you to Grace for all the help here. So Tess is looking for, if I'm looking for a brush for a blender, do I need to look for a soft brush or a scraggly brush? Do the filaments need to be short or long? There's a,
soft brush.
Okay.
Shape of the brush is really critical. Material of the brush is really critical. Acrylic brushes, you don't want them to carry a ton of water. That's one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of goat, even though some artists are just, they love goat. I'm not a fan of goat, and I'm not a fan of natural hair because the hairs swell with the water and they hold a lot of water, and it's just very hard to control how much water is in your paint, and that's such a big part of acrylic painting. So this is made from a mix of hair, and so it's got a whole bunch of different stuff, and I think there's even synthetic filaments in here, and the cut of it, see how it's rounded? Another, like this here is goat, and even the small one doesn't have quite the little rounding shape to it. But I wouldn't go I would go no softer than this goat, but pretty soft. That's not really helpful, but it's like if it's the softest brush you ever put your eye makeup on, it's probably too soft. That's probably maybe a nice dry blender, but it wouldn't be quite enough brush to do this. And that's why I recommend specific brushes, because it's hard to find a great round blender. But look at the shape of this brush. Now, this brush does wear down with use. You can kind of see I've had these for a while, and the shape has worn down a little bit over time. Might have one I've had a long, long time. See? Wears down a little bit over time, but the overall shape of it, the way that the hairs are cut across here at this angle is important. And this brush it's a soft brush, but you wouldn't put your makeup on with it. It's got a little more width to that. Whereas on your round blender here, this is a pretty soft brush. You could probably put on blush or something with this. But the synthetic tack line is resilient enough to hold up against acrylic paint, if that helps.
Yeah.
I hope that helps.
It does.
All right, now I've got to come in here and I've got to paint some rocks. Whoops. I'm going to take my round number 6 Raphael Sepia Random, bring it down over to my black, and I'm going to take my black and my red together. Black and my red together. I'm going to come here and just paint in this. It's kind of a dark rock at this stage. Got the red and the black. That's because we want to have a little bit of opportunity for shadow. Paint that one in right here. And then we come in and we hit them with highlights. There we go, getting those little kind of, it's like a dark brown. It almost looks like a burnt sienna, and you might be like, dude, this makes burnt sienna. It does a little bit.
It's Bernie.
It's an alternate way to get to a brown, but the glow of the Cad Red is really critical here. It does make your stuff kind of glow. And when I get that going, I might grab a little bit more of my Cad Red and Cad Yellow. Start to paint the forward edge of the rocks. Little Cad Red, little Cad Yellow. Forward edge. Any other questions while we were edging, forward edging? Come and paste. Everywhere you feel like the light of the fire would hit the rocks, you want to kind of start to hit them with a little bit of a brightness. This is the first layer of it. I also like to come and bring a little bit from here and underneath my little rocks. Just a touch of the shadow that might be cast by the fire. Right down low where the rock touches the ground, making a little contrast. All right, now once I've got that in, I'm going to want to dry everything and sip my coffee. That's what I'm going to want to do. So dry everything and sip your coffee.
Dry everything and sip coffee. I can relate to that, you know? I gotta appreciate that I got my coffee back here. I've been sipping on it. Let's see here. Yes. So Gwen, wouldn't the round part, I was just reading, I should read that out loud. Wouldn't the round part of a brush, especially the Textura, work as a blender? And yes, it would. You could totally do that. Again, every blender brush is going to give you a slightly different effect. So you kind of got to get to know it, but the D brushes would make a great blender there.
The D brushes can be a very good blender. The Texturas are a little bit better than the Textura because it's got a synthetic filament. So I'd say it's got a little bit softer of a scrubby here. For a dry brush blend though, it's tough to beat the Artany, which is done with hog bristle brushes, and that does a great dry brush scumble.
Chrissy, you could totally modify your brushes. Just know that they're not returnable.
Yeah, artists modify their brushes all the time.
You could totally put a rubber band around a mop.
Yeah.
Yep. Also, dental floss to tie it, and then wrap it a couple times. It's a waxed filament that works really well for holding.
Yeah, it really does. You can modify brushes. You can cut brushes. You can shape brushes. Little nail trimmers are fantastic for that. I can make a filbert grainer with a filbert and a pair of nail clippers but I just can't return that brush anymore.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you can be handy in your brush bucket and get stuff made? You absolutely can.
Give you the next step here.
You mean the next step? We're going to take a little bit of our Cad Red and Cad Yellow. Make a nice little orange. And it's distinctly orange. I'm loading it on the toe of my brush. I'm going to come up here to the top of my fire. And I'm going to curl out a little S stroke. We might want to be close up on these brush strokes so everyone can kind of see how the little S's go. Smudge out a couple little bits of fire going out there. How this works is the closer the fire is to the fuel source, which is the logs, the brighter and lighter it gets. So these outer flames tend to be like in the oranges. Sometimes I press in on the brush. And like the Aurora, I like to really sort of follow the flow of the fire. I really love painting fire. Fire is one of the things that I love painting. I've done whole classes on just fire. Like several just fire classes because I like fire so much. That's a really nice one when you go down and up. I have to just put a little orange there to have it go off there. So yeah, in all your stuff, whenever you're working with your teachers, listen to what we love, listen to what we like, because we've gone through it. But also know that at the end of the day, it's got to be good in your brush bucket, not just mine. You have to enjoy the use of the brush. Come in here and add a little bit of orange in the center. I come in front of my rocks too with a little bit of this orange as well, a couple places. See how the glow is a glow on the rocks? It's time to get the campfire. And that's how we start to see the stones around the campfires, through that illumination. All right, I'm going to want to dry this so I can get the next layer in. I'm not really trying, I'm layering over more than I am blending at the moment. So
Now,
I definitely want to be able to layer over.
real quick, before you go that,
Mm.
what, so Catherine would like to know, what did cinnamon mix with anything to get that orange?
Okay, so the first mix for the glow around was the cad red, cad yellow, and black. More red, where I wanted it to be more of an orange glow. Same with the stones. But for this orange, it was just cad red and cad yellow and nothing else. It was just this one and nothing else. And nothing else.
Okay.
And we're going to have to do a couple layers just to make it bright, but we're going to get there.
All right. So that's all. I'm going to go back through here, and I'll get those some of those questions for her right after the little dry break here. So thank you guys for hanging out through this. We're getting pretty close here. The fire is coming in. We're not too far, I think, from seeing this get wrapped up, but it's coming quite along.
It is. It's coming around nicely.
Now, I had some questions that I might get back
I'll
to
sip my coffee for questions.
Yeah, we go on to the next one.
Sure.
What varnish do you recommend? Also, do you gesso over varnish? Can you gesso over varnish?
I think it's tough to gesso over varnish. Varnish can make, depends on the varnish that you use. A lot of varnishes create a surface that does not make it as easy as it could be to acrylic over. Some varnishes you can. And for that, if you want to know if your varnish would be suitable for that, you want to contact the company that made that varnish and ask them that question specifically, because they should have done studies and experimentation to see what you can get. Can you paint over that varnish? Like, I think Liquitex gloss medium and varnish you absolutely can paint over. I don't even know if they sell that product anymore. Golden has a spray-on varnish and a Solivar varnish. I think Solivar is overkill, but that's the best out there. And I think that Krylon has a spray-on varnish for acrylic painting that if you can handle the VOCs from it, or spray it outside. I can't. John sprays it for me.
Yeah.
But you would spray it outside, is a great varnish to just create a seal. And you can get it, if you're going to do it matte, if you want to varnish a matte varnish, then you actually spray the first coat and gloss, allow that to completely cure, and then do your matte varnish, whether it's brush on or spray on, you do that. That prevents the milking of the varnish, where it looks like it's a little bit cloudy or a little bit made of milk. If you do the gloss first to do the sealing and the painting, and then finish the varnish with the matte, it will mattify everything. If you want to do gloss, you just do a couple of coats, like 2-3 coats. And I have funny videos on how to varnish, and lots of videos on how to varnish, and there's good information out there. But I do think that Krylon makes some good art varnishes. Grumbacher does some darn good art varnishes. And Liquitex has some passable art varnishes. For brush on, like the Liquitex brush on varnish.
Yeah.
It's pretty beginner friendly, to be really honest. For a varnish, you follow the instructions just to the letter, and don't do it where your cats are, because all their little hairs are going to go right into it, and just, or your dog who sheds, who shakes. You need to have it in sort of a hair-free, pet-free, dust-free zone. And you want to make sure that if you're doing spray varnishes, you have good ventilation. If you're doing Solivar varnishes, those are the 2-part varnishes. Those have a chemical reaction. You don't want to do that indoors. You can do Liquitex brush on varnish indoors in just reasonable ventilation. So that's varnish. That's what you need to know.
Yep.
So that's his own class, but that's what you need to know. We must continue on, my friends.
All right.
Now I'm going to come here and get a little bit of my yellow, smidge of my red, and a smidge of my white. So it still registers as a very bright yellow. Get some glazing liquid in there. I'm going to come around here and brush. Away the black. Now we do this in a couple of layers, so don't be stressed at this stage, guys. You're just putting paint on. We're coming back with bright colors too. Just painting it in. I like to paint the outer edge so I have the shape of the fire in.
Yeah.
Just so I have that going, and then a little glazing liquid. Just improving the flow of my paint.
And it's not necessary to varnish, is it?
Mm-mm. Not on acrylic. Or watercolors, but they have watercolor varnish now. I'm painting around my little logs. Now I'm going to take a little bit of my Cad Red back over to my Mars Black.
Mm-hmm.
I don't take all the black out. I just take some of it there, but I do take the black out around the fire in the stones, where it's just a little bit of Cad Red. It's just a hint of glow. It makes a big difference. Now, dry everything. I know that seems fussy, but dry everything.
No, it makes sense. Because this is the underpainting.
This is the
glow.
underpainting of the fire.
Right. So, the underpainting. And no, Susan, I see your question there. And Debbie. So, why would you varnish? That's a really good question. So, mostly at this point, it's tradition. A lot of historically, paint wasn't as tough as it is today, and especially in other mediums like watercolor or oil, things like that, the surface can really change. And so varnishes historically were to protect and seal the painting. But because the advent of modern acrylic paint and its strength and resilience, it just doesn't need the same kind of historic protection. So it's just sort of a new thing.
All right, I'm going to grab a little bit of my yellow out here. Some glazing liquid into it. I'm going to just brush a brighter yellow. If your yellow just will not cover the black underneath, you may have to paint it white first. If you're in there and all you're doing is fighting, fighting. And put some flames up over my little log here.
Oh, thank you, Kendra.
And come into
Wow.
some red orange here. Thank you, Kendra.
Really appreciate it. Cinnamon can't see the chat.
I can't see the chat, but I hear from John and I know what's going on in the chat. I'm grabbing a little bit of red and making some orange. And we're just going to make a nice mixture of it. Just brightening up our fire a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit of my red here. I'm going to come around my little edge and make little spots. That's the embers cracking on the log. That tends to be where the heat source is.
Mm-hmm.
And I can come in and grab a little bit of my orange. And paint those up a little bit. Some yellow. You see, as we work it, it just starts to flow and flame better. Gets its little roaring fire going. It is easy to be hard on yourself about fire because it's not a static object that always looks the same every way you see it. Add a little yellow to that. And while I'm here, I'm going to add some embers. I'm going to take a little bit of my red. And I will start the embers that could be coming out from the fire, crackling up. Now, we have to dry again.
Dry again?
Take a look at how that looks with the logs and everything.
It's looking pretty glowy.
It's pretty glowy.
Yeah.
It's pretty glowy.
So that goes to a question that we were being asked just a moment ago, which is, why do we paint this in the order that we do? Couldn't you just paint the background in and do that? And you certainly could. That would give a different effect. But a lot of times the reason that Cinnamon does the order that she does is it helps especially with the student paints, create these wonderful effects. Like by being able to paint the glow of the ground around those rocks, it made that beautiful little shadow that falls right around the rocks when it's next to the fire. And if you had just painted that whole thing in, you would have had to have gone back and added that. So different processes will get you different effects.
And there's always like 5 or 6 ways into anything, into any
Sure.
technique, any effect, any moment. Now I'm going to take a little bit of my white over to my orange mixture from earlier. I might grab some of my red and black to kind of make it not as bright. We're going to add a little bit of maybe a little more orange. A little bit of these little grasses that could be out here.
Little grasses.
Little grasses.
Susan, I'm sorry.
And grab a little bit more of my brown here.
We find it's better that the commercials interrupt me than Cinnamon, so we try to make sure they happen on those drying breaks.
Grabbing a little bit more of my red and black.
Because I never say anything that's really important anyway. Wah ha 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 ha.
You do too. We're adding just a little bit of dimensionality to the ground. I might just brush over some of that, knock it back a little bit, but we want it to have just a little bit of grass, a little bit of personality there. So our stones exist. All right, I might take my fluid paint that I put out earlier, or you could just take your white paint and thin it, and I'm going to come from here and add some white. There we go, a little bit of heat there. All around where the fire is.
All around the fire.
A little bit there. Just along those little logs. Bring a little yellow over to it. Make a lighter yellow. See how that just starts to create dimensionality in your fire? I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of that and add a little spot to my embers so that they are glowing as they flow up. You just paint up your fire. Fire is very colorful. Now it's roaring.
It
Come here
is
and kind of
roaring, man. That's crazy. That's just building up, building up, building up.
building up, building up, building up, so that our fire roars. Yeah. There's always a technique, but there's always another technique, guys. Always another way. That's looking really good.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I'm getting to happy.
I think it's awesome. I'm happy. I think it looks great.
Sometimes I just paint it in there delicately, like just really think about how my flames are going.
Mm.
I love it. All right. I think I'm ready for a signature. You see anything that's missing?
I don't.
Okay. I'm going to grab a really great signature brush. That's this one right here. And I'm going to take a little bit of my orange. Not my brightest color, but not my darkest color. And just very carefully paint in my signature. I try to pick colors that are present in the painting.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily do this with neon pink, right? I want the signature to show, but I want it to be not a distraction from all the work that we just did.
That's really awesome. I like it.
I like it a lot too. It was a really good Saturday. It was just a very mellow, take a deep breath in, take a deep breath out Saturday. Things I want you to take away. Teachers' recommendations for tools are fantastic because they come from experience. But just remember, even within that, people have individual preferences, and something that makes one artist crazy will make another artist very happy. I will go back to Goat. Color by Felix uses Goat, and I think he does a fantastic job with it. But I get too much foaming with it, and so I don't enjoy it. But that doesn't mean that your technique won't enjoy one more than the other. So always take those recommendations with the idea that you are where the buck stops.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be enjoyable for you to use. You have to like what the tool is. Ask all the teachers why they like it, and try to find something that fits your painting hand, your brush pressure, the way you mix paint, the way you use water. Because every artist has different little flavors, different little flavors, and you're an artist too, and you have a different little flavor too. Your little fire will look a little different than my little fire, and we don't need to be carbon copies of each other. We're just all painting a northern light scene with some nice trees and a campfire because that image makes our hearts happy. We want to hang it on the wall. It's a fantastic winter image. This is part of Winter Wonder. I try to do 12 paintings every year. Come this time of year, I started a little bit ago with the snowman and the bokeh, and I just try to make sure we have 12 fun themed, different themes of winter paintings that we do for Winter Wonder. So this is part of Winter Wonder, and I hope you really, really, really love it. I loved my time with you today. Is there any questions before we go?
Let's see here.
Because I don't want to leave you guys because you came to the live, and I so appreciate your time and your energy here.
Well, Jen was, and this was asked earlier in a slightly different way. What's your favorite thing to paint when you're not teaching?
If I'm not teaching,
yeah,
then horses. I probably paint horses. Horses just on my own. I do tend to paint horses as a subject when I'm just left alone to my own devices. They are a difficult subject in fine art to paint, not because they're specifically hard on techniques, though they are a challenging subject for techniques because they have so much motion and energy to them, but because they're perceived as commercial. and not fine art. And so in art, you'll find that there's fine art lowercase, and then there's fine art
Yeah.
all uppercase. And so sometimes when art is for an intellectual purpose or a more subjective purpose, like fine art, all capital letters is, painting subjects like horses can cause people to, in a knee-jerk reaction, sort of discount the image. In fact, when I was coming back into my fine art practice before we really kicked off the YouTube channel, I did entire collections of horse paintings because I just have to hit my head against that rock.
Yeah.
I just have to go in and go, yes, but is it this horse? Where I do something like extraordinary with a horse so that, and I have managed to jury in with them, but it is literally harder when you do certain subjects. Like if you paint bunnies, you've got to paint some crazy good bunnies to get into that fine art space. But I like painting horses as a subject. I find them interesting. I grew up with them. And so they sort of just speak to my artistic me, that artistic mini me. And I think I've shared some of that old collection in the past. I don't share the one of the horse falling through space anymore because that disturbed everybody. But I really, really like that. I like painting big cats quite a lot. I have a weird affinity for snails, just on my own. And then I also I used to come from a very kind of card, print, and paper space. And so I sometimes like to paint really cute illustrative things. Just to please myself, like the cutest little gnome you've ever seen. Or like I've got one coming up with my patrons that I did for a retreat, Noam Chomsky. And he's a Van Gogh gnome. He's Van Gnome.
Yeah. Van Gnome.
Vincent Van Gnome. And he got named Noam Chomsky at the last retreat. But I just like that. Like, I just love painting stuff that's cute. If you see the 3 chickens that are singing, there's these 3 chickens that are in a choir and they're in primary colors and they're just wild and funny. That's very much me. That's me painting me and just sharing that with you. So like that one, the singing cow, the silliness of those pieces really appeal to me as well. And apparently roosters, because left to my own devices, when I'm like, what are we going to paint this week? I find me a chicken. Find chickens a really funny subject matter. I just think they're hysterical. Crazier their feathers are, the more extreme their facial expression is, the more I seem to gravitate to them. And you might have noticed that I'm a little bit sucked into birds. Burbs. Sometimes you just got to paint round burbs. I have painted cardinals a lot. I hope you don't mind, but they're just so funny. Blue jays and cardinals and robins and all the little round fluffy birds out in different little ways. I just love them. They just bring me a lot of joy. So probably nature. I'm not as big into portraiture. I think on my own I will do portraiture, but that's often like where I'm like, I need to like stress myself and give myself something to work on. Or if I'm feeling really like giving myself a hangover and a headache, I do cars and in like architectural things that require a lot of 2-point and 3-point perspective.
You have a lot of dog paintings.
I do have a lot of dog paintings. Dogs are fun to paint. I think the basset hound I did was like some of the finest art I've done in a minute.
You even done first study lessons on how
to paint different kinds of dogs. We did a whole big art quest on dogs. So lots of different types of dogs. And every once in a while I get in there and I paint a dog. We just did the pop art dog, which was kind of based on a boxer. So I like to get in there and paint different breeds of dogs. And cats, of course, are super fun. I think sometimes I kidnap you guys into painting cats because I'll be like, it's cat time. And everyone's like, is it? Is it cat time? Okay, cat time it is. And we paint another cat, but I really like
time for the kitties.
Time for the kitties. Sometimes it's just always good. And I like painting fires. I like this as a subject. I find the lighting of it and just the balancing of it just enjoyable for me. Because I feel like this picture on the wall, it feels like you could walk in and sit down next to this campfire and just relax and not worry about the pressures. The pressures of modern day life, let's be frank, have gotten too intense for all of us. They're just too much. They have got to be kidding. I mean, John and I have a joke about like what disaster is currently taking out the world right now. And even though we're joking, like these things are legitimately all happening. John the other day was like solar flare. And I'm like, oh yeah, we forgot solar flares. Too much stuff going on.
To shift gears. It's funny because there's lots of requests that come in. Like, have you ever painted a silky chicken or a peacock?
Yeah, I
Yes,
painted
and
peacocks
yes.
and chicken. Yes, silky chickens and peacocks.
Both of
Yes,
those?
yes. I painted a few peacocks, peacock feathers, peacocks different ways. Painted hyper realistic peacocks and some cherry blossoms. That was like a big 3 hoop. But then I painted just this from the early days. It was a 216 by 20 canvases next to each other, and one was like a purple and green feather, and the other one was a green and kind of purple feather, and they did sort of a little
Ooh.
wind around each other thing. If you did the 2 canvases, that was really, I used to like to put up 2 canvases. I did ones where I did 2 18 by 24 canvases for big florals. There's a big winter floral that's on 2 18 by 24 canvases. Because if you put those canvases together, they make a big canvas.
Big.
36 by 24. It's a big canvas for your walls. So that's kind of a fun trick that you can do.
All right. I guess
All
we
right.
can go have lunch now.
And we can go have lunch now. I can't wait to see yours in group. We have a group on Facebook, the Art Sherpa Official. It's a closed group. You got to answer some questions to get in. We just do it to make sure that the spammers don't get in and the bots don't get in. So like, don't feel like you actually have to have a good answer for like, what's your favorite Sherpa painting? It's just a question that verifies human. You can be like, I don't know any old painting with chickens, and it counts. We just try to get everyone to answer it so we know that the people are in there. That's a closed group. It is curated. No meanness is allowed. If it gets reported, we pull it down. It's all support. It's all love all the time. It's a great place to share your versions of your tutorials from my painting classes. It's fantastic for that. I also have a Facebook page if you want to see what's up and coming. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Pinterest. I'm on Blue Sky now. I'm over on TikTok for as long as that lasts, but I still post up over there on occasion. Don't go get the apps. Don't go get apps to follow. It's okay. It's just if you're already there and you'd like to connect up, that would be very, very cool. But no need for everyone to be downloading social media left and right, and certainly not TikTok. I don't recommend that at all. But if you're stuck there already, like I was, because I was there since Musically, so I got absorbed into whatever was next, and I was like, well, done is done. I'm here anyways now, so I might as well upload some time lapses. So that's what I've got going on, and of course over here on YouTube. And if you go by the website and you sign up for the newsletter, I send out newsletters too here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if you'd like to support cool free art content like this and like to do some exclusive paintings or exclusive weird projects, because I do strange things with the papers. Sometimes we draw. Sometimes we draw. Sometimes we do oil pastels. Sometimes we do acrylics, but different stuff than we paint here. Sometimes we do multi-part classes. We just do it.